Good evening. Welcome to the monthly meeting of the Rec and Parks Advisory Board. For Thursday, we'll start with a roll call. I have a call to order tap, and then we'll have a roll call starting to my left.
Don D. Graves.
Joe Longobardi.
Greg Weaver.
Glenn Larner.
Veronica Johnson.
Awesome. With that roll call, thank you, ma'am. We'll have a motion to approve the minutes for August 4th.
Make a motion to approve the minutes for August 4th the way they're written.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed. The minutes are approved. For new business, we'll have a brief on the Shannon Farm Master Plan. Mr. Shepherd?
Good evening.
Good evening.
You know, we've been at Shannon Farm for not quite some time, but a good bit of time. It's a beautiful piece of property there off a long road adjacent to the homegrown market there in Lexington Park, Gate 3 of the Naval Base. That property is 212 acres, direct access to the water, but it's going to look like that we're going to be walking to the water. Have a surface there that's handicap accessible that gets us there, with the maintenance road along with it too. And we're going to have to work that out with the HOA there, so that's part of it. But what a place. So a master plan. So let me say this, what's a master plan? A master plan allows us to assess current and future needs, then come up with an action plan, evaluate feasible ways to get it done, and that's what we've been doing, working with Kyle of A. Morton Thomas, and then to find out long-term budget or phased-in approach in that. So really your master plan isn't your design altogether, it's that big view picture of what's there, what the possibility is, and what can be done. So in working with Kyle Monday, she's online with us there. She's going to be doing a presentation. And what I'd like to do is tonight you would hear the presentation from her just there. You will get a copy of the draft master plan and look with. And then we come back in October for concurrence of the plan, because a lot of information. And so that gives you a chance to look at the plan, read it, hear about it, hear from Kyle, and we'll answer some questions, and then we can begin to move into October for concurrence or not, and taking your information, questions you have, and some input. Does that sound fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Kyle, are you with us?
I am. Hello.
Okay. Kyle Mundy, A. Morton Thomas, been with this project for the last 2 to 3 years, and here we go, Kyle. You'll lead us on through the presentation.
Absolutely. As Arthur said, I'm Kyle Mundy from AMT Engineering, and this is a presentation of the Shannon Farm Park Master Plan. The park is a 385-acre parcel located on Long Lane in Lexington Park, Maryland. In November 2014, Shannon Farm was acquired by the Commissioners of St. Mary's County through a partnership with the Maryland Department of Natural Resources and the United States Navy. St. Mary's County acquired the land with the intention of building a new community park. Attached to the land was a deed of conservation that outlined the easement purpose and allowable activities that may occur on the property. The parcel was designated as a conservation easement in the interest of preserving habitat, maintaining rural character of land, and limiting development in the area. Under this agreement, agricultural uses and activities and recreational uses are allowed, specifically low impact recreational outdoor activities such as hiking and picnicking are permitted, but most other active recreation is not allowed. As Arthur said, the parcel is located near the intersection of Three Notch Road, south and east of the Naval Air Station at Patuxent River. The site is currently undeveloped and heavily wooded, with large swaths of wooded wetlands in the interior of the site. There are approximately 66 acres of wetlands on the property, and just so you know, filling in wetlands is prohibited, including for recreational purposes. On this drawing, please note the METCOM line in blue and the critical area line in red. So the Shannon Farm parcel is currently an undeveloped lot of land. At present, there are no official uses. However, people use it illegally to both drive ATVs and to hunt. As I previously stated, most of the site is forested and forested wetland. West of the Metcom sewer line is an upland mix of oak, hickory, and pine forest. And then to the east is a mixed oak and pine wetland forest with pockets of non-wetland areas. At the far eastern end of the trail alignment sits an early successional stage forest that is mainly consisting of sweet gum trees. The forested areas are in good condition and are relatively undisturbed, except for the sewer line right-of-way and ATV trails that wind through the property. And here are a couple images of the existing conditions of the site. Of the 385-acre site, approximately 222 acres are located within the critical area. It is within an area known as the Resource Conservation Area, or RCA, and the land uses are most restrictive in those areas. There are a lot of performance standards that address lot coverage, forest and developed woodland retention and replacement, construction on steep slopes, stormwater management, and habitat protection. It's important when developing an area within the RCA to maintain as much forest as possible. Additionally, there is floodplain on the site. However, the beach access does not appear to impact it, so we'll gloss over that. I'm going to walk you through some of the environmental restrictions so that you can see why we designed the park the way that we did. Steep slopes and erodible soils can lead to runoff that will eventually pollute the Chesapeake Bay. Within the critical area, development of slopes over 15% is prohibited. Luckily, the steep slopes shown here in blue are located to the west of the property outside of the critical area, so that did not impact the design. Highly erodible soils are shown in orange and are on the western side of the site. They correspond with the steep slopes. Additionally, hydric soils, shown in blue, are often related to wetlands and really limit what you can construct on them. There are many ecosystems within the site, but they're especially riparian forests. These have relatively undisturbed and large tracts of forest, which support the breeding populations of forest interior dwelling birds, such as warblers, flycatchers, woodpeckers, other endangered species. And because of the pristine nature of this lot of land, it's actually one of the best examples of these plant and animal communities in Maryland. So this is an exhibit that was given to us by the Navy that provided the location of the wetland as they had delineated it. We were not allowed to develop at all within the boundaries of this wetland exhibit, and that includes minimal impacts like trails or boardwalks. Wetlands that exist along the trail alignment begin just east of the Metcom sewer line and extend across much of the alignment to the east, ending near the area of successional forest. These wetlands are primarily non-tidal forested wetlands. Since the Chesapeake Bay sits at the far east end of the trail alignment, there are two additional types of wetland, intertidal and subtidal wetlands that can be found on the east side of the site. The wetlands along the trail alignment appear to be in good condition and are relatively undisturbed. The lack of development on the site has allowed the wetlands to remain and natural plant and animal communities to flourish. Since the park is located on the Chesapeake Bay, there are two major concerns related to water that need to be considered when designing the park: shoreline erosion and sea level rise. We're looking at a picture of shoreline erosion that is actually from Shannon Farm that was photographed by a county citizen and sent in to us. There are two primary reasons for shoreline erosion, and that is wave action and sea level rise. Two ways to deal with erosion are living shorelines and breakwaters, and that would be a great option for a site like Shannon Farm. A living shoreline is a protected, stabilized coastal edge that's made primarily of natural materials such as plants, sand, and rocks. Has the benefit of providing wildlife habitat purifying water, buffering floods, reducing erosion, and attracting wildlife. And then breakwaters are hard barriers that take the energy out of the wave impact so that the wave hits the breakwater harder and then gently approaches the shore. Both of those measures will help reduce shore erosion. With sea level rise becoming an increasing threat to coastal Maryland, a study was conducted by the state in 2018 that found the sea will likely rise between 0.8 and 1.6 feet. AMT studied sea level rise models for Shannon Parks specifically, and in the spring of 2022 to assess the vulnerability of the park over the next 50 years. The results were the lowest rise scenario was 1.87 feet, and the highest rise is 3.4 feet. So if the high scenario should occur, Shannon Farm will lose over 9 acres of wetland and forest over the next 50 years. So it was important to keep in mind that that could impact the future of this park and the design. So the park vision. The vision for the park is primarily to provide beach and water access to the Chesapeake Bay for county residents that is ecologically integrated, aesthetically pleasing, and inclusive for all visitors, despite age and ability. So we wanted to provide beach and water access, provide a multi-generational passive recreational opportunity, provide a space for gathering, provide accessible pathways and site facilities, include a playground for multiple ages of children and their caregivers, and provide all of these solutions in an environmentally sensitive way, while maintaining the strict design requirements for the critical area. So our design process, after meeting with the Department of Recreation and Parks, AMT developed 2 concepts based on the discussion of the park. 2 potential entry points were considered, one from the water tower along the existing road, and the second extending Long Lane to a bridge over the wetlands. The second concept was ruled out due to cost. The first concept was explored and developed, and a final concept was presented to the county and stakeholders. However, residents of local communities were concerned about the additional traffic that would be brought in along Long Lane and having a roadway behind their homes. So after much discussion, a new access road was added coming in from Three Notch Road and Homegrown Market. So this is the master plan for Shannon Farm Park. And just to orient you, here's Homegrown Market, and this is Three Notch Road.
That's right.
Parking will be located near the Homegrown Market so that a hub is created and park visitors will have access to the market's restrooms and facilities. The trail featuring boardwalk sections will take visitors to the beach, where there will be a gravel trail leading to beach access, restrooms, picnic areas, and a playground. We spent a lot of time talking about the environmental constraints of the site, and this is how they were addressed through this design. Boardwalks were included to reduce the impact to wetlands. We're proposing that boardwalks be used across them. The piers that the boardwalk will be built upon require a much smaller amount of land disturbance than an asphalt trail. And for stormwater calculations, MDE does not consider that to be an impervious surface. Steep slopes. St. Mary's County is really committed to making this trail accessible to all users. The western side, as you saw from the slope diagram, did have some slopes that exceeded 15%. However, with the use of one raised boardwalk and a lot of creative grading, we were able to make the connection maintain ADA accessibility, which means it's under 5% from the parking lot down to the beach. We're proposing native meadow planting in any disturbed area. These native meadows will provide habitat for native species. And as mentioned, stormwater management, it's calculated and really defined by the limit of disturbance. We are disturbing approximately 6 acres of this site. And to meet the stormwater quality requirements, we've proposed microbial retention facilities, grass swales, bioswales, and sheet flow to conservation areas, which is just to say we're using all of MDE's best management practices to meet the increased stormwater quantities. So I'll walk you through some of the site features. Similar to other park facilities, St. Mary's County Recreation and Parks wants to be able to control access to the beach from Homegrown Market. There will be a manned gatehouse with an arm at the entrance to the parking lot, and they will most likely collect fees on the weekend and for out-of-county visitors. The main access route will be a 10-foot wide asphalt trail. This trail is designed to be ADA accessible and is under 5% slope for the entirety of its length. There will be 2-foot wide shoulders along the length of the trail. 14-foot boardwalk is used along this access route. Most of the boardwalk segments are over areas of forested wetlands, and the boardwalk will be set on helical piers to really minimize the disturbance to those wetlands. As most of these boardwalks are not over 30 inches from the ground, the boardwalk will have toe kicks instead of railings. The playground that we design will be a multi-age natural playground with a nautical theme. The natural playground is a play environment that consists of elements and textures from the earth, such as logs, stumps, boulders, plants, instead of the traditional steel and plastic of traditional playground design. The trail is designed to be fully accessible, and as such, the beach access should also be. Ramps, Moby mats, and other ADA technology will be evaluated to bring users of all abilities down to the beach. Due to the steep nature of the drop-off between the forested edge and the beach, stairs will need to be used to prevent further erosion from foot traffic. Several picnic shelters will be located along the gravel trail at the forest edge. Picnic shelters will be on concrete pads with tables and will be available to reserve or on a first-come, first-served basis. The park will include a restroom facility near the playground at the beach. There are currently no utilities such as water, sewer, or electricity on the site. So these will most likely have to be either pump out or vault toilet restrooms. Access for maintenance will be a key consideration when deciding what type of facility should be built. And on that note, we'll open the floor up for any questions.
That was wonderful. I don't have any questions.
Thank you,
So
Kyle.
one of the questions I have, that erosion area that you showed back at the beginning, is that going to have to be bulkheaded, or how is that going to be handled?
Well, there are a couple different options, but what we mentioned in the master plan specifically were using the living shorelines and breakwaters, which are a little bit more of a green technology than a bulkhead. And, it's designed to, the living shoreline really holds the shoreline in with plant roots, and then the breakwaters would minimize the wave action. But we would, when it gets to that design phase, I think that we would explore all options, but the preference would be living shoreline or breakwater.
How much beachfront is there going to be there? You have any idea?
I mean, the existing beach is the entire length of the frontage.
That's 0.6 of a mile that piece of property is.
Uh-huh. And is there any consideration for it to be, any part of it to be pet-friendly?
I didn't get that. What friendly?
Pet, P-E-T.
Oh. Well, yeah, our pets are allowed at our parks now as long as they're on the leash.
Right. All right, well, thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
Sorry. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That was a wonderful presentation. I don't think there are any other questions from the board. So will she come back in October for final review, or is it just be
There'll
presented?
be staff there
Okay.
because we're going to, and then, you have a chance to put in some input too between now and then. And that's what it is. It's input to come up with the final plan. And remember, this is a concept master plan, the big picture. You guys, you totally understand that. And then we'll get it there. And then we'll go back to the commissioners with some cost estimates, and we got some more work to do on that. And then lastly, Kyle, the first time those wetlands were flagged, can you tell them who did those?
Arthur worked very hard, and he carried a lot of stakes, the entire length of that trail. So Arthur has walked that trail at
Often.
least twice with me, probably 3 or 4 times
You,
with
Philip,
other people.
was it Philip or Andrew?
Andy.
Andy, yeah, so the three of us, that was serendipitous. I was just there, and I saw her carrying all these stakes, and I said, well, do it, but I didn't know it. But time to walk it and flag it, that was 4 hours just to get from that 9/10 of a mile to, but once you got out of that woods and saw the Chesapeake Bay, it was very well worth it.
So I bet it
And
was
any
rewarding.
citizen, once they come down that trail and then all of a sudden, it opens up to the bay, it's going to be spectacular.
I think so.
What's the estimated life product of the boardwalk areas? What's it made out of?
That's a good question.
Yeah, we were
Kyle?
just talking about that, weren't we?
We have been looking at Permatrek, which is a concrete-based boardwalk system. So I don't remember off the top of my head what its lifetime span is, but it's pretty long.
Forget that, yeah, we were just whispering about that. Thank you for asking that, because we were just whispering.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, Mike's.
Oh, sorry. So thank you for clarifying that. And I do want to say thank you, Mr. Shepherd, for clarifying that this is a draft, because when most residents hear master plan, they believe it's final. So thank you for clarifying that it is still a concept plan. So if there are no other questions, we'd like to thank Kyle for that presentation, and we will hear from you again, I'm certain.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks again.
Right.
Yeah. All right, moving
So
on.
I'll just add in there, the master plan itself is just like some of these other things, very large document. The last request you guys had for a large document, I
Yeah.
dropped it in Google Docs. Was everybody able to get into the Google Docs?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll do the same thing tomorrow. I'll drop the master plan into Google Docs and send it out. If you need a copy or you want a printed copy, let me know.
Thank you, thank you. All right. Moving right along, we have some some park use permits from the first permit is from Piney Point Lighthouse for use at for the Piney Point Lighthouse for use. The name of the organization is Long and Roberts Wedding. So I believe I need a motion. I don't need a motion. I forgot to do this.
I'll make a motion that we approve both of the requests.
Yeah. The first one is from Long and Roberts Wedding, for a Long and Roberts Wedding. And then the second permit is for St. Clements Island Museum from the 7th District Optimist Club. So if I can have a motion to approve those alcohol permits.
I make a motion to approve those alcohol permits for both requests.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? All right, I'll be signing those. I'll put that right there. Be signing that. All right, so our next item on the agenda is just some general questions regarding the fiscal year '24 budget and planning. The board just has some questions regarding, and just, again, some generic questions, and then we'll open it up for discussion. But the initial question is, when is the actual planning period begin, or if it has started already? Thank you, sir.
Yeah. A great agenda item, because here we are. Christy and I met earlier this week with the capital improvement project team, and we don't have the final schedule out, the budget schedule, but we know in general October 15th, the recommended CIP there. And the good news about that is the October meeting, I'll come back with this master plan and staff's recommendation for CIPs. So you'll get that you'll get a chance to review that before we send it in for staff recommendation to what's called a CIP team, Public Works, Recreation and Parks, Economic Development, and Public Schools. And then we put those requests in. But you'll have a chance to see staff's recommendations at the October meeting, okay?
Perfect, those were actually
Then
my
the
two
general, then
questions.
the operating budget, what happens there, that one's a little later in the year. The planning starts now, but we don't come close, probably be at the November meeting would be our some major recommendations. And probably the best thing to do for you would be what we call essential cost changes. Not what you, and that's what the county asked for us. So, let's say we have a $4 million budget and we're saying, hey, here's some new things that equal up to $250,000, and that's probably what you want to know anyway. But we'll answer any question you have. So you're looking about November because it's in the new year before we submit to the county our staff recommended budget to the county, okay, to the county finance and thus to the commissioners. And then the budget work sessions generally begin in March for the general fund. I'll tell you in October the exact, well, we'll give you a copy of the schedule as soon as we get it at our next meeting. But I believe we begin before the new year with the CIP, or at least get commissioner direction, priorities of the CIP, okay?
Well, you've answered actually all three of my questions.
Okay, sounds good.
Board members, are there any other questions for Mr. Shepherd on the
No.
budget planning? No? Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, sir. Okay, moving right along, discussion of CIP, wait, I'm looking at the wrong agenda, sorry, Christina. Oh, no, that's right. The board would like some information on RP 2102, the park planning grant. Obviously, this is a new CIB introduced, not new, but visible to us. So just some general questions on the description of what this project is, where the source of the funds were, and what is the relationship to any additional projects that's listed.
So just so you know, in the background issues of this board doc item, all these answers are there for you, but this is the funding for the Land Preservation Parks and Recreation Plan, so that master plan document. Every year, we apply for a $25,000 grant through the Department of Natural Resources to go towards the next master plan document.
Got it.
So obviously, we just expended those accounts now with regards to having the plan we have, and then from this point forward, the $25,000 a year will go to the 2027 master plan update. And as you're aware, just going through this process, the master plan is that overall concept plan for everything that operates inside of recreation and parks.
Okay.
So all those citizens meetings, all those surveys, that kind of thing.
Right. So has the LPPR, is that still in draft, or has that been finalized by?
Been adopted by the county commissioners. It is at this state now. We're waiting for the
Okay.
final approval.
That's what I thought. Okay, awesome. So in other words, the county's done with it. It's uptown. Okay, perfect. All right, any questions from board members? Awesome. Okay, moving right along, we also had some questions for the PL 2101, the St. Inigo's boating facility project. Same questions. Are there any relationship? Is there a relationship to this project to any additional projects? And where is the source of the funds for this particular project coming from?
This is a standalone project to make facility improvements to St. Indigo's Landing boat launch. Originally, there was a $250,000 grant through DNR through the Waterway Improvement Fund. That was for improvement of the finger piers and the sidewalls, and we're actually currently applying for a second $250,000 grant through Waterway Improvements to do some dredging and the concrete pad improvements to the same facility. And that will go in front of the Board of Commissioners on Tuesday, the 13th.
Okay.
And what I would just want to add to that St. Indigo's Landing, I don't know how many of you have been there, Beachville Road and St. Indigo's Landing.
Oh, that.
Yeah, that's boat ramp there. That's what we're repairing. But that's has a nice, to give you an idea, if you're in that southbound run, if you pull in there, you'll see a good living shoreline. That's all I wanted to tell you. And that's exactly what Kyle was talking about, besides the rock revetments, were the living shorelines that minimize the erosion. So I just want to give you that tip. The public landing has a good living shoreline for your view.
So is there collaboration from Recreation Parks with any other agency in the county to restore that, or is it all just this particular project? Because I noticed it has a PL, like you said, public landing. So is there collaboration?
Yeah, a lot of times with soil erosion, Public Works gets involved in
Okay.
this because they're working on soil erosion
Right.
down at the Piney Point Lighthouse area. Took that entire, because that's a huge project. Here, the Living Shoreline, we took care of ourselves. Excuse me, we took care of ourselves, but we do partner with Public Works.
Okay, that's what I
Well,
thought.
and keep in mind, too, that anything like this has to go through the permit process with LUGM. So you're talking about Maryland Department of the Environment, the
Right.
Critical Area Commission, all of those things are going to be done through that permitting process, let alone all the surveys that we do.
Right, perfect. That's good to know. I remember growing up using that, that boat landing. We'd ride jet skis there, so that's good to know, good reference, thank you. All right. Yes. Any comments from board members before we move forward? No. No? All right. All right, moving right along, we have an ad hoc committee and a report from the ad hoc committee. Before we move into discussion and a report from the ad hoc committee, we'd like to address an amendment that was passed at the last month's meeting. So to do that, let me find my language. To do that, I just want to reiterate on behalf of the board that the board recognizes that any actions and motions coming from the board should not be directed to the department, but our recommendations and motions should be directed to the county commissioners. So the purpose of amending that motion will do just that, correct the instructions or the recommendations of the motion from the department to the county commissioners. So with that being said, I'd like to open the floor. Oh, here we go. I move to amend the previously passed motion for Recreation Parks to conduct an energy audit test at one of the sports complexes to test methods of lowering the power demand through staggering light usage implementation in 15-minute windows, rather than turning all the lights in a facility on at one time. So the amended motion will be to move to recommend to the county commissioners to suggest or to direct the Recreation and Parks Department to perform the energy audit test at one of the sports complexes, to test methods of lowering the power demand through staggering light usage implementation in 15-minute windows, rather than turning all lights in a facility on at one time. So I hope everyone could understand that. So I'd like a second or discussion. How about we do a discussion first? Is everyone clear on what the amendment is?
I'm clear what the amendment is, but I think that perhaps before you finalize that motion, that you hear the report to be presented now, tonight, and then see if there's any other words that you'd like to use in that motion.
Right.
I don't have a problem with the way the motion reads, but other members may feel that it needs to be a little more clarification.
Right, so we move to have a first and a second, and then we move to discussion, and that's when we
Thank you.
can do that business. So I'd like to have a second to that amendment of the motion, the original motion?
I'll second that.
All right, now we can move to discussion to encourage and/or modify the language. Open up for board members for discussion?
Okay, so first thing I'd like to point out in the sheet that I gave you, going down 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth one down, $1,056.04. That's not a ball field, that's a soccer field. If you want to make that change, I realized it later today and didn't get it changed, okay? So that's a soccer field, all right? So what has been done since that email went out and the last presentation is that I think there needs to be a further explanation as to how A and B work in relationship to the billing, all right? And the first item on there, the Baggett ball fields. Under Plan A, the bill was $650.46. All of these examples are taken from the billing period for July. I received other bills, but a lot of them was for August. So I only did these 12 to fit into to an amount of dollars that would be saved. So very simply, Baggett, that's 2 fields. And then the column B, Plan B, had we taken measures to create a reduction in the power surge, the savings for that bill would have been the last column, and that goes right on through every example that's given on all 12 of the ball fields and soccer fields and football fields. So walking through them, I'm not going to walk through every one of them. It's not necessary, I don't believe, unless anyone wants me to. So very simply, the bill for the month of July in these facilities in column 1, had the power surge occurred where we would have been billed under the lesser plan, there's column 2, and the savings on each one of those bills would be in column 3.
Okay.
So that comes up to $2,604.55 for those facilities only for the month of July. Now, if we were to continue to walk through that reduction of power surge, which was previously discussed, that came up with a motion, if it gets started immediately, the way this works is here. If we installed a delay device in every other pole, the lights would go on 15 minutes later after the request. So if an individual wanted to use the field, wanted to full power, full lighting at 8 o'clock, then the request would go into 7:45. Subsequently, all the lights would be turned on just like they are now by Control Link, and the other half of the lights would come on at 8 o'clock, giving full power to that particular facility. The demand reduction, as you can see here, is significant. This is a very slow month. We're going to come into the October and November where every facility has peak. November is the peak for every one of the facilities in all of our campuses, all right? So you're going to see an immediate reduction in the bill if it's installed in October, November, whenever it goes through in a particular facility. So what I also did is took last November's 2 peak months. I just did 2 facilities. I did the 4 baseball fields, which is on the example I gave you, the 266208, and I asked from SMECO, I asked them to do a calculation for November of 2021. That bill came to $3,203.02. All right? Had we been under the lower plan of power surge, the bill would have been $2,037.19, which means that particular month there had been a savings of $1,165.83. In November of last year, on the one soccer field, for 2021 November, the bill was $1,908.09. going under the lower plan that would have been established after power surge was reduced, it would have been $1,205.95. That's a savings of $702.14. So I think those two figures together, what come to about $1,800 and some dollars just for two facilities last November. It serves no purpose to go through any more examples than that. I just took the two highest just to give that example. You can see that it's the same parallel of savings is about a third from July. These figures I'm showing from July, and the same thing would have occurred in November. And each month, basically, with a power surge being taken care of, you're going to see a reduction right away of about a third. Okay. That being said, once a new norm is created under the Plan B billing, which takes 11 months, that reduction is even going to be greater, because then the billing will be reduced even more where we get billed at in A. So some of the confusion can be, if you're looking at this, and I had to get a lot of clarification on myself, that's why I'm taking time to explain it, is that the odds are you'll never be in a position of getting billed under Plan B, because Plan B is established to create the energy that you're telling SMECO that you may need at a peak time.
Okay.
So the goal is to reduce A with a power surge, okay, which is where the problem comes in. So I don't want it to be confused with the A and B billing, okay, because the further you drive down the initial power surge under the billing process of
when
A
you save money.
continues to reduce B, okay? So an example might be, and I have one here. Let me get it real quick. Let's see. This is Budds Creek ball field lights, okay? There's two bills up there from Budds Creek. So both these bills for the month of July were, let me make sure I'm quoting, yes, from the month of July, actually got billed under B instead of A, all right? So here's what I'm trying to show you in relationship to this A and B billing cycle. So there was no usage in either one of these two facilities. So there was nothing to be billed under A, so you got billed under B, and subsequently, here's how those figures worked out, and I'll just give you one example. So the energy demand and the distribution demand combined came to $256.73, and the bill that had to be paid was $277.94. So all you're doing is paying for energy and distribution demand when you had zero use.
Right.
So the end goal by the power surge is to reestablish the norm of B in order to bring that down, all right? So in this particular park, there's the norm of demand is very, very low to begin with. So that's the reason, but you're paying for a very large energy demand and distribution demand. I mean, for this particular park, it's
I say, yeah, for that particular park.
It's a large number, okay? So whether it's the smallest used operation or campus or the largest, okay, the goal is to reduce the power surge in order to save money, okay? So the cost for the delay devices are $350, and I understand that the contract for the electrician that the county uses for R&P is $125 an hour. And talking to the engineers at Control Link, it takes less than an hour to put one of these units in.
Oh, okay.
So if you had a football or soccer field with 4 lights on it, you'd be looking at about $1,000 cost to do that particular
Run
field.
the test, okay.
Two relays at $350 and another $250 for electrical work, which is on the high side for installation. Now, another question that I had was these delay devices and installing them and using them became the obvious, okay? This is not something that's just come up for our facility. This is a stock item with them, okay? This is something that happens all the time, all over, the country, so to speak, okay? So it's not something that's brand new.
Right.
It's been around for a long period of time. And the next step I'd like to go into is I put some figures together that would mean that if we did every campus, every facility, it would probably be somewhere of around $25,000
Per
to
campus?
install. No, not per campus, for all the campuses we have.
Oh, okay.
Would be around $25,000. I don't think I figured it wrong. I believe I'm very close to that figure, okay? So if you took the savings just from July and you multiplied it out, just saying that was the norm for 12 months of the year using July at $2,600, okay, you'd be looking at $31,200. And of course, there's some lower months, and of course,
Right.
there's a lot higher months, more higher months than lower months, I might point out. So from a cost point of view, it's a good thing to be looked at.
Right.
Now, to me, and this is only in other conversations that have come up that I hear, attending board meetings with the directors, there's some money that's around from the American Rescue Plan, okay? So that there could be some consideration to ask the commissioners to consider that investment without interrupting any other plans that may already be there in the budget. I don't really know how that works, okay, but I viewed that as an option to pay for it. There are some other things that, as I continued to talk to SMECO, that may be interesting for the commissioners to investigate, I guess, in other aspects of county government, as far as refixturing buildings and so on and so forth, older facilities or upgrading facilities, including the older lights that are in our parks. We have older lamps instead of all, I think out of 21, 10 have LEDs and 11 do not have LEDs. So there's a program that's out there where if they were to be replaced, SMECO pays for 80% of the bill, and county government would pay for 20% of the bill. Now that would not only be part of relamping fixtures as time goes on, because this is not something I'm told from SMECO that's going to shut down tomorrow. You follow me? But there is a window there of opportunity that needs to be sought out. So also in the conversation, just to look at where this could go outside of just our own initial looking at things, just for our ballpark considerations. The one gentleman told me that Calvert High School in Calvert County just redid Calvert High School with LED, everything in the entire complex. That's the oldest high school in the county. And just redid it. And of course, if you've ever experienced the change of where everything's LED, it's much brighter, so
Yeah.
on and so forth. So there's other metropolitan counties that are taking advantage of this big savings. I want to try to come up with reaching out down the road what this might look at from a savings point of view, just in 1 year. The conservative figure that I had was $50,000. I think that you're probably looking at $70,000 and up. If this was
Savings.
to be savings, yes.
Okay.
Savings for Rex and Parks on the campus if it was
That's
to be
just
looked
one
at.
agency, so, of course.
Pardon?
I'm saying that's just one department, so, okay.
Right. So I guess at this point, I'm open for questions.
That's a lot to unpack. Honestly, what I received was another motion, another ask, I would say, for the county commissioners out of all the information. Thank you for all that information you gave us. And what I received was an actual another motion. So we actually have a motion right now to just test. And the information you provided us supports that motion to request the commissioners to direct the department to run just this energy test, because there obviously are some cost savings that can occur. But with the additional information you gave us regarding the LEDs and a long-term look at cost savings, that seems to be, to me, and I don't know about any other board members, but that seems to be another motion. Another ask, I should say.
Well, I would
Is that
point
your
out,
intention?
I would point out to the chair, the big emphasis is that, for lack of a way of putting it, based on the peak time we're going to come in, October, November is the time. Immediately when November happens, if something's done for that month, prior to that month, where the delay devices are put in, you're going to see an immediate reduction in every facility for the month of November, which is going to be extremely significant because that's the biggest use, okay?
Right.
So the bill starts getting reduced every month as fast as you get them in.
Right.
And in all facilities, we're coming into the busiest time.
Right.
It starts now in September, it starts getting a little darker. October, obviously, daylight savings time, and into November.
Right.
And pointing out that it's all sports.
Yes.
This is not any favoritism to a particular sport. Football's coming up, soccer, it's all sports. All users, every light system benefits by this consideration to do this.
Right.
I'm going to add a few things and kind of just go back to the genesis of all this, because I think Don did a tremendous amount of work on this. But I think the bottom line is it has to do with sports teams being charged too much money to use lights. That's what all this is about. And so when many people have questioned the amount of money that we're paying compared to our neighboring counties, it was the need for an explanation of why we're paying so much and why individual sports teams and organizations are paying so much for lights. And so, for me, it's more of a question for the county commissioners of what they can do to lower those fees, period. Now, what Don did with all this was almost do a lot of the legwork to explain away that the county can run more efficiently to lower those costs. But again, I think most people don't care if that is not seen on the front end for the teams and the organizations that are paying those fees. So for me, that's the most important component of all of this, is what can the county do to lower the fees charged to individual teams and organizations for the use of lights. And I think that, with the work that Don has done with SMECO, he's kind of represented some very factual things that can be done. But at the end of the day, it's a matter of the fees being decreased for the sports teams that are paying for the individual use of lights. So that's just my 2 cents that I would add, because I think that's sort of how this whole thing
Right.
started in the beginning.
Spurred.
I agree. I would agree with Joe's remarks, but I think that one of the things that I learned out of all these conversations with the environmental impact that is out there with all these things, you follow me? It means that the reduction in all the fossil fuels that are being used, you follow what I'm saying, to create energy, the more we work to lower things, then the better it is all the way around. So,
Right.
so there's a lot of other benefits that have been explained to me, you know. And the big thing is not so much take what I'm saying, you know, as gospel, you follow what I'm saying? I mean, I have the names and who I've talked to. It's really, if it were brain surgery, I wouldn't have been able to do it. It's really that simple, okay? So if it's easy enough for us to understand, it's easy enough for everybody to understand. And really complimenting SMECO for Ms. Walker, for Brian, for Nicole. You know, these are professionals.
Right. So for me, and give any other board members a chance to respond or provide comment? No? No.
For me, it's like Joe said, what we're really looking at is the fees. Okay? How we get there, the people don't care. The people, I mean, I understand what he did. The people don't care. The county should use that information and go with that.
Right.
Our biggest thing is lower the fees. That's what everyone's been asking us to do, is lower the fees. Don gave them a reason to lower the fees. So our motion should be, let's lower the fees. Let's try to figure out how to lower the fees, where we
Right.
can lower the fees in Parks and Recs. That's what we're really trying to do.
For lights.
All this other information is great. It should be turned over to the director. The director should go out and buy
Well,
things.
we recommend to the commissioners to ask.
Commissioners, to the commissioners, the commissioners should say, hey, we see that there's
Investigate,
savings
yes.
that can be made, not just through Parks and Recs, but throughout the county. If we
Yeah.
do, are they doing the buildings the same way? They turn all the building on at one time. Does that make a difference? All those different things Don talked about.
Right.
Like you said, there's a lot of different things, not just ball fields now. So that information should be used. Hopefully, it'll be used by our county commissioners, and they are listening to what we're saying
Right.
today. And that's what we do. But what we really need to do is find out.
At the end of the day, got it.
Yeah, at the end of the day, how to get our fees lowered.
Got it. Got it. So again, thank you. And again, I agree. I agree. And I did hear two motions. One, the information that you provided us is compelling evidence for this motion that we've already agreed to. We're just discussing it. So that seems to be the immediate action, to request the county commissioners to direct the department to perform this test so we can see that cost benefit, right? So then the second motion that I heard was seeking the leftover funds from the ASR, the ASA, American Rescue Act, to perform this test. Did I not hear that correctly, Dawn?
Well,
Because the department will incur some cost to perform this energy test. So,
Well, it's not a test if you go through with it.
Right.
It's something that's going to be done.
Right.
It's no longer a test. It's, you know, I mean.
I hear you, but-
Every person I talk to at SMECO, to just be clear, one person may say a significant reduction, another person may say a big reduction, this type of thing. But the point is that every person from SMECO is saying you're going to see a big reduction, and 1/3 just off of the old prices is a big reduction already, and that's only going to get better.
And I hear you,
very
and I
clear- they've
agree,
been very
and
clear. They've been very
I'm
clear.
not invalidating what SMECO has said, but, there is an agency here, there's a department here, so
Yes.
in order for them to verify and validate what's being said, this action has to happen. So, or this test, or this information needs to be validated. So instead of the board recommending to the county commissioners, install these devices, we are recommending to the county commissioners to have the department test these devices, and if these devices prove and support all information that you're saying, move forward with installation. Is that what I'm hearing? Because that would then call for another amended motion.
I'm not, yes, that's what you're hearing, but I believe that it would be better represented to the county commissioners if it came through the department based on our presentation.
Understood, understood.
So whether or not this analysis could go directly to the commissioners to help move that along, I think would be beneficial. You follow me? But I think, the department needs to get it. I'm not saying they're not interested or any of that type of thing. I'm just saying they need to get involved based on this information to pick up the ball and run with it, and see if the presentation has any validity, so. That's, I don't know if I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth.
You aren't, but again, we as a board, we don't direct the department.
Okay. No, I didn't.
And hear me out. We know this.
Okay.
So, and yes, in the spirit of the information that you've strenuously gathered, yes, it would behoove the department to not move forward.
I didn't mean in my remarks that we should be directing the department to do anything.
I'm aware of
okay?
that.
I didn't mean that.
I know you
any way,
didn't.
shape, or form.
I know you did it, for sure. But as a board, this is our part. We recommend to the county commissioners for the department to do this,
Okay.
to run, to investigate, receive all the information that you've gathered, take it, and act accordingly. That's what we do as a board.
Okay.
So, again, we do have a motion.
Do we need to add the thing that Joe said where we want to try to
Absolutely.
lower the fees?
Absolutely. That's
Should
why I'm saying that would be an amended motion, because
to look at lowering the fees.
Well, with this cost savings, that would be
Cost savings
the
to-
output of this act, lower the fees,
I do
right?
have one question, if and perhaps.
That's a whole nother action.
Well, I do have one question. Maybe Ms. Bishop can help out. Does do the charges for these electric bills, do they come out of that comes out of the enterprise fund?
It depends on the bill. In the facility, I don't have the answer to that question. I think what the biggest thing where we are is last month you made this motion to direct the department.
Right, which is why we amended
That's what
it.
needs to be amended.
We
is
did,
those
that's what we're
words.
amending. That's what we're discussing. We're amending.
For me personally, I don't think the motions mean anything, to be truthfully honest. I think we're a public forum that we're trying to get a message out there.
True.
And the message is lower the cost of fees for lights.
So then
Period.
we wouldn't be talking
I don't
to
think
the-
we need to make a motion. I think it needs to be in the minutes. This is now public. The commissioners are hearing it. The future commissioners are going to hear it.
Yes.
And so the bottom line is, people are saying that we're being charged too much in St. Mary's County to use lights. Now, that may be accurate, they may not be accurate. The point is, that is what people are saying. So at the end of the day, then it's on the department to bring that to the commissioners, or the commissioners to just hear it themselves and then ask the department when they show up to say, listen, a lot of people are saying we're charging too much money. What do we need to do to lower the fees? So Don has proven a way through SMECO that the county can lower those fees. Or the commissioners can say, you know what we're going to do is we're going to eat some of the costs so that we're going to lower the fees. And I'm just throwing out stuff because I don't know.
Right.
But that's not really for us to figure out or care, or for the public to figure out or care. It's for that sentiment, we're kind of the voice of the community to say,
Right.
that is a lot of what the community is saying, is that we're paying too much for the lights, and what can the commissioners do to improve that? period. I mean, to me, it's that simple. I don't feel the need to make it. I mean, I'll be on board if we want to make an motion for that. I don't know that it's necessary because, as we said, the motions really don't mean anything. We're not a decision-making board per se.
Right.
We're an advisory board.
Right.
And so the whole idea of an advisory board is to send out the message and advise. And so that's our advice for the director and the Board of
County
Recreation and Parks is there a way that we can lower the cost of lights fees, period. So that's all I need to say to get it out there. I'm more than willing to hear everyone else's take on that. I don't feel the need to make a motion on it. And I'll stop there for my point.
So the purpose of making a motion is, of course, to send officially the voice of the board. That's why we make motions. That's why we send memos. So, of course, this is a public forum. Everyone's watching. The county commissioners are watching. The candidates are watching. Correct. But that's the reason why we make motions, and that's the reason why we send memos, just for that reason. So, sure, we meet every Thursday. Some of them watch, some of them don't. We voice our opinions. We give our advisement, and it's not for us to say, director, please go do this. County commissioners, you need to tell them to do this. We speak. But the avenue and the mechanism of the motion is to say, this is what we decided based on the public. We want you to act. Saying it is just giving us our opinion, but a motion is that official mechanism to ask and recommend and do our duty as the board. So that's that. So again, we have a second and we have a motion. So we voted. All in favor? All in favor, yea or nay?
I'm going to ask for clarification.
I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it.
What the motion is.
Yeah.
I'm going to read it. If everyone says all in favor, I'm going to read what the motion is.
Yeah, I would say read the motion at this point, and we can go
Okay,
from there.
so we have a motion, an amended motion, to have the county commissioners direct the Department of Recreation and Parks to perform an energy audit test at one of the sports complexes to test methods of lowering the power demand through staggering light usage implementation in 15-minute windows, rather than turning all the lights in a facility on at one time. What we have now just discussed is the output of this test, lower the fees. Based on the cost benefits of this test, lower the fees. Is that your understanding?
Yes, that was the whole.
I don't need any, now that I'm reconsidering, I don't need any of the extra stuff. If we were to make a motion, the motion is a recommendation to the commissioners to lower the fees for lights, period. And we'll keep it that simple, and I can even read it.
I'm happy with that. We are amending the motion again. And I agree.
Discussion period. To me, we keep it that simple.
I agree, because we have not said all or yea, so I'm amending the motion again. We, as the advisory board, make a motion to suggest to the county commission to lower the fees for light uses in St. Mary's County.
Yep.
Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
There are no nays.
Nay.
Got to ask. No.
Oh, there's a nay?
Yes.
Okay. There's a nay. There's one nay. The ayes have it.
Nay.
Dawn DeGraves. The ayes have it.
We need to undo that.
Okay, and
Undo that.
I'm going to watch the video.
I was going to say, we
To get that last one.
well, we didn't.
I just want to be clear that I understand.
So that motion is not, that motion was rescinded with the new motion, because we didn't agree.
Sure we didn't have
So
to do it.
this motion here is what is the amended motion to go with, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Moving right along. Mr. Kyle has been very patient in the galley, so we will move along to the online field reservation. Mr. Kyle, please step forward. Thank you for your patience. Oh, Greg, give a handout. Oh, okay.
Well, I appreciate you guys asking me in here today. At this point in time, we're just a few days under 7 months from implementing the online field and light requests. And so what I've put together is a summary from our very first date of accepting these type of requests, which is February 10th, until yesterday, which was the end of the month. And that kind of summarizes everything from where we're looking at. Just to clarify, recreation and parks facilities are any recreation and parks that we have athletic fields. All facilities would be including the HOA fields that we have partnerships with, as well as the school properties. So just breaking things down for you there. Total sports hours is the number of hours that we have had a sports activity at that facility. Total reservations is the total number of practices or games in a specific time slot. Total number of spaces reserved, that's the number of our unique facility or unique areas. So that could be a 90-foot field, a 60-foot field, multi-purpose field, turf field, a designated patch of grass as a practice area, any one of those. They're all unique areas that we assign practices to. Total number of user groups, that would be the number of individuals or organizations that we have granted permits to. And total number of rec track transactions, that's going to be the number of receipts that we generated as a result of the request. One transaction can contain, a couple hundred reservations within it. Just depends on the size of the request. Sometimes we get one at a time. Sometimes we'll get a whole season's worth from like St. Mary Soccer, and that will be, several hundred reservations within it. So, like I said, that's broken down for you pretty significant there in the short amount of time that we've been operating this. And so I just wanted to let you guys digest that and ask for any questions that I can answer for you guys.
Yeah, so you mentioned, I'll go first. So you mentioned HOA and MOUs. Can you explain lost my train of thought. Can you explain what HOAs currently there are MOUs? I know of one, but can you just run down for us?
Currently, we have MOUs with Chestnut Hills, Country Lakes.
Okay, that's what I knew.
Wildwood. Oh, we don't have an official HOA with them.
Town Creek?
No.
No?
I think that's probably something we need to bring back to you so we can
Okay, cool.
check our list of MOUs.
Okay. I thought there was one with Town Creek, but no worries, no
I know
worries.
we just redid Country Lakes, but there's
is
a
that the
difference
one we were
between
talking about?
having an MOU.
Right.
And
Okay, no
leagues
worries.
using the fields.
No worries. So my next question would be, what exactly is that MOU? Does Recreation Parks manage reservation and usage of that, or what does the MOU with these HOAs entail? A brief, just
I would
generic
think each
briefing.
one would be different depending on what amenities the property has.
Okay. All right. So that's cool. Okay. Questions?
I have a couple questions.
I knew you would. I saw your eyes perk up.
I did. So I am interested in knowing if Wildwood Park is a partnership or MOA or MOU.
If we want to put MOUs on the next agenda, then we can bring you that information, but Kyle's online reservations, it's not hand
Not the
in
right
hand.
topic.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
That for this time, but I will put it on the agenda.
Absolutely. So just one question then. Does the online field reservation receive and direct reservations for those HOA places?
Yes, the fields that we have made arrangements with to conduct sports activities, we do handle the reservations for that.
All right.
And were some of these reservations in what we see now, right? Is what I.
Yeah, in the bottom section.
For the all
Okay, cool.
facilities?
Correct.
Yep, okay.
So like I said, with or without MOUs, the facilities that we currently schedule things are Forest Hills, Forest Hall there in Brown Road, Chestnut Hills,
Yeah.
Country Lakes, and Wildwood.
Okay.
And so
All
as
right.
far as the MOUs, that would be something for a later meeting.
Great, okay.
All right. Sorry, go ahead.
Are you done with your question?
Yes.
Okay, so so this was implemented last February, pretty much for the start of the spring season for the most part. I know it probably started in February, but for the spring was the big buildup. So what questions, concerns have you experienced through the kind of anytime you implement anything like this, you're going to go through the bugs and the issues. So what would be your take of how the spring went and any issues that you had?
Well, I think when you're in the public service, no news is good news, and so we haven't heard a lot of negativity or criticism of the process itself. Of course, we still have user groups that are unhappy with not being able to get their first priority or first choice of fields, and but I said that's not affected by the process itself. I think the learning curve was pretty quick, and any feedback that we felt we could make immediate tweaks to, we were able to tweak, whether it's a word on a form or a field that was auto generated. We were able to work with our IT department to take care of that quickly. I think some of the challenges that we face is I think there's still that expectation that we're a 24/7 operation, and we have one part-time employee dedicated to this, and the expectation that they work well into the evening, 11 o'clock, to answer calls or concerns about lights 7 days a week. I think that's a challenge that we're trying to adjust that persona with our user groups. And so obviously we would like to handle all of our business as much as we can during our operating hours. But like I said, we are in the customer service business, and we were aiming to serve our user groups, but like I said, we're not a 24/7 business, and so we do our best to meet that 48-hour turnaround time, and I think we've done a really good job with that. The biggest challenge is not so much receiving the requests and processing them. A lot of it is the amount of communication that we have to have via email or phone with the requester, or as a result, multiple parties that may be affected by a particular reservation or a field conflict. And so we spend quite a bit of time, problem solving and offering up alternative suggestions, and that kind of sometimes holds up other paperwork that's in process while we problem solve, and of course sometimes patience is not always on our side, and we work as quickly as we can. But I think overall, as far as the process, like I said, I haven't heard any concerns or complaints, and everybody seemed to get tech savvy pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple questions. I'm sorry. So is it more of a first come, first serve basis when they're...
So we have a field priority list that is published in our Parks Policies and Procedures Manual that's online. It's also listed directly on the application page for the permits.
Okay, and then how about cancellations? Is that through the system as well? Like if a game, they know they're going to be canceled, they go back in?
So there's not a cancellation form. The user group will send a cancellation request to our hourly staff member, and that staff member will remove both. If they have a light request, they'll remove the light request, and then they'll also remove the reservation itself. And so the master calendar that many people refer to that we post on our website, that's updated every morning at approximately 8:30 a.m. Monday through Friday. So if we receive a request, 4 o'clock today, we'll take that out of there, and by 8:30 tomorrow, that free space will be showing up on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have, are there no-shows?
There are no-shows.
With no communication to you to?
Correct.
Is it a lot, or?
Well, we certainly rely on our field staff to report that, and then we also obviously will have other organizations report the activities of their competing organizations as well.
So are there responses to the no-shows? For example, if I reserve lights tonight and I don't show up, am I still charged? Or what's the process?
if you reserve lights and you don't cancel them, they've already been pre-programmed and you will be charged the fee for that.
Yeah.
There's no fee for reserving a facility
Right.
that you don't show up for, unless it's special circumstances, in which Recreation and Parks is providing extra staff or, securing police officers for
Right,
the
right.
event. And in that case, we've already engaged in extra, budget for that particular event, and you will get charged regardless. It is important to us because we take the schedule and staff accordingly. Certainly, we take note of no-shows, and if we begin to see a pattern, we will address it with the league. Sometimes the league is unaware of that particular coach no-showing.
Right.
Sometimes it can be a variety of different things. Certainly, it's that's one of our challenges, is that there is no penalty in place to prevent no-shows or prevent people from returning what they're not using. And I think, certainly that's something that we want to examine season in and season out and come up with a better process. It just hasn't came about to show itself clearly yet.
Yeah, I was trying to steer away from using the word penalty or consequence, but
So what is that costing us, Kyle?
So the cost is not a new cost. We diverted funds that we used for our hourly groundskeeper position and have dedicated that to this field scheduler. And so that's just an hourly cost of approximately $14 an hour, including FICA and workman's comp, and that employee works 30 hours a week for 52 weeks a year, and that is approximately $20,000 to $22,000.
So if I didn't cancel the umpires, I got to pay for them.
Well, we don't. The only officials we contract are for our own programs.
No, I didn't mean it that way. I'm using hypothetical. So we have a reservation, as you pointed out, and I take time. I've got a baseball game, and it's not raining. You follow me? And I cancel my umpires, okay, but I don't cancel the field reservation, okay. So subsequently, staff shows up, and then you have to pay them, right?
Correct.
So my question is, do you have any handle at all as to what kind of money that's costing the department because people don't take time to cancel what they've reserved?
Well, I think
I'm not trying to put you on the spot for a number, but
most of our parks, obviously have staff there that are tasked with covering the entire property, and then the park is still open to the public until dark. And so, in the event that one particular field has a no-show, the show is still going on everywhere else in the park, and so that staff member would not be sent home in that event. In the event that a baseball game was projected to go till 11 p.m. and they didn't show up at 8 and there was nothing else past 8 o'clock, then that staff member would go home at 8 o'clock and it wouldn't stay till 11 o'clock waiting for teams to show up.
So what I think I just heard you say is that that really doesn't happen.
Well, certainly, I think more of the quantity of staff is instead of scheduling staff for a park, and the entire park is abandoned. Like I said, almost every park, we have except for our school properties and some of the off-the-path properties, we have a staff member there to cover all activities in the park, not supervise a field. They're checking the restrooms, monitoring parking, maintaining security, and so enforcing field permits is just one of their tasks. And so we don't specifically staff specific fields. We're staffing the whole park. Now, granted, like I said, if we have a full slate on our schedule, we may have 4 staff members there, and if we have nobody show up, then we've wasted 3 staff members. We would probably still have 1 staff member there because it's a popular park.
I said that's what I think Dawn is asking. What is the impact of what you just said? The 3 staff members versus leaving the 1 staff member and sending the 3 staff members on. What is the impact and what is the cost impact of that?
I don't have the numbers on the amount of no-shows and the the
But like
affected
you,
cost.
but and if I could, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't, it doesn't sound like, and I just, my knowledge of how it works, that there really isn't a significant cost impact. The impact is the fact that there's people that are competing and requesting fields. And so there's a frustration when someone doesn't have access to a field because it was denied, to find out that someone who had the permit didn't use it. I think that's
didn't
the
show up.
bigger problem,
That also,
which isn't
yeah,
isn't
good concern.
nothing that Recreation and Parks can control.
No.
You know,
Right.
it's-
The challenge is that teams will request their field use while their registration is still going on, or even before they've even held registration. And so they're using their historical data to estimate what fields they may need based off the number of teams and players they have. And so, they are granted field space, around the time of their permit, and then it may come to be that they have far less teams, and the responsibility lies on the organization to report that and identify that maybe they don't need all the spaces that they requested.
And because they don't report that back to you, that's what creates the frustrations from other organizations about getting the time slots that should be available, but they haven't canceled the reservations based on their needs. Is that a fair
Correct.
assessment? So when you issue, not that you're doing it wrong, I'm just saying, so when an organization requests a group of fields, based on whatever the organization is, and up front they say they need, let's just say, 3 90-foot diamonds, and the demographic they're operating in, right? So they wind up with a number of teams that may or may not support the need for
Right.
3 of those fields, right? So if they don't report back to you, what's the correlation between how many fields they feel they need and how many fields you feel they need? So if an organization comes out at the beginning and says, I want 5 to 9 Monday through Friday, and Saturday from 8 to 5, okay? And then we find out that there's no way they can use a particular segment of fields based on how many teams they have, all right? So what I would foresee is that if they don't cancel them, obviously they're tying up that space for somebody else. That can create a lot of animosity regardless of what sport it is in the county, correct?
Absolutely.
Well, I think there's quite a bit of variables that play into that. For example, the sport of baseball, you can only typically have one baseball team playing on a baseball field because you have baseballs flying around. Football, you can fit 4 or 5 football teams on a 100-yard field. The size of the kids, like I said, you could, for those same 4 football teams, if they're peewee, they can fit on a 100-yard field. If they're middle school or high school kids, you can maybe fit 2 kids on that 100-yard field. And so right now, we allow the leagues to have control over how they designate that space to their teams. And, as far as what the appropriate amount of practice space is, and each organization has a different amount of time they practice, the number of times per week. And so we don't dive into the details of that with them. I don't think we have the manpower to do that. I think one of our biggest challenges is when it comes to game time, because when you have games, 2 teams that are practicing on field A and B, if they play each other, one of those 2 fields is getting freed up. And so, we always, but it's up to the leagues to provide us with their game schedules and notify us, okay, we're going to be at field A so that we can free up field B, for potentially another team to use. And so, it's all about, having that open line of communication, from the leagues. But like I said, games are the big one because, especially if it's an in-county thing. Now, granted, if it's a team visiting from out of the county, that doesn't free up a field. But if it's 2 teams, in a rec league that are playing each other, that should free up a practice location or a game location.
Right. So with all that being said, and I want you to understand that the remarks I'm making have nothing to do with what you're doing wrong, okay? You follow what I'm saying? My feeling is that there could be organizations that have too much access, you follow me? And then they're not turning around and saying, look, I can give some of this back, you follow what I'm saying? So subsequently, you have organizations that only have one practice a week, and you have these other organizations that have 3 practices a week, you follow what I'm saying, for the availability at time. And that can create animosity between programs. That's the point I'm trying to make, and I think you've agreed on that, because they're not reporting back their actual need after they organize how many teams they have in a particular sport.
So what do you do? Because
Well, so
it's
I had some-
definitely not the department's
Well,
responsibility,
Well,
right?
so here's a couple comments on my part of it. Who
Yeah.
regularly has to make field requests.
Yeah.
So, I want to give kudos, because I think, all things considered, it went better than expected to unveil what you did in the spring.
True.
I think if there was a suggestion that I would have, it would be maybe giving a deadline to put in requests to anyone, to know that, hey, that doesn't mean you won't necessarily guarantee not getting something.
Right.
But at least, and I'm thinking on your behalf, you have the big picture before you've issued anything. And so then here's the amount of teams that I'm having and organizations and so forth that are requesting a certain location. And then you can more easily plan for what you're giving out. Because the argument that I've made is this, and it is a simple way of looking at it. If there's 4 teams that are requesting practice twice a week, Monday through Thursday, at a particular field, it should not occur that 2 teams get it twice a week and 2 teams don't get it at all. That would be where Parks and Recs has to come in and say, hey, in order to make this work, you each are going to get it once a week.
That's right.
And that's an oversimplification of what it is. But I think you're able to do that if you have that deadline per season. Now, granted, some things are fluid in there, but for the most part, your main actors have specific seasons. They start on a certain date, and like you said, they should be able to make projections on what fields I have based on previous registrations. But then from that point, you're able to kind of, instead of
Forecast.
giving it all to them for them to have to give back, you kind of can
streamline it
ahead of time, say, here's what you need. And then the other component to that is, I think, the communication piece. I think I'm in the baseball world. I mean, my kids play all the different sports. Some are a lot easier than others. Like I've said, I know there's a few very small soccer teams that practice in our county, but for the most part, soccer is run by one organization in the entire county. So it's very easy to say, here, St. Mary Soccer, you have it, and then all that's handled in-house. I'm sure you don't have anywhere near the issues dealing with soccer permits as you have with some other sports, because that's handled within the organization.
divvying out of the field.
Because they're, so if I dispute why that soccer team's practicing in mine, it's still the same.
Well, and then they don't need a baseball diamond to practice either.
Correct. And so, so that would be the one thing. I know for me, a lot of it, the coach's communication has helped a lot. So maybe that's something to consider, is just a communication of those that put in the permit, because normally we figure it out. I mean, and to me, we all, for the most part, look out and work with each other, and sort of Parks and Rec's role is, okay, we have a conflict, I'm going to have to make the decision because they couldn't figure it out, type of thing.
Right.
So those are just sort of my thoughts on it, because I do think there's enough fields available, because of course people want the prime time of what it is, and that's where you kind of have to step in. But I think if there's a deadline by getting you their requests in to kind of then, and again, it doesn't necessarily guarantee anything, other than it gives you a pretty good outlook long before it starts on how many people are requesting things. Anyway, that's just the one input I would say from my standpoint. I know that because I've reviewed you'd asked about the order of priority. Some of it's somewhat vague. I mean,
prioritized priority.
Some of it's kind of clear cut with the organizations and the time before, but some of it is kind of vague in terms of what it is. So, I'm fortunate, I know the ins and outs of it. I think the problem is if I'm not intimately aware of that, I miss the boat and I could get nothing
Right.
if I haven't submitted in time and so forth. So that's just my one point to maybe help out is, and like I said, that's just to help you kind of long before it all actually starts. The other question I had for you is the calendar is the greatest thing of the whole thing because you kind of can look up and see what's available, what's not, and so forth. But a lot of times the calendar doesn't show that far in advance. So is there a reason why it's kind of just month to month versus?
So we can certainly put it out there, but as you know, 1 month document can be anywhere from 50 to 90 pages. And so as you add months to that, you're
Maybe
going to double
future
the map
requests.
size. And so certainly if you know what you're looking for, then you can navigate quickly and do that. And we have no issue with that. We have had several comments about that. We have no issue projecting it out further. It's just going to be a much larger document.
I'm curious about the field priority list. Who determines who has a higher priority than others?
That's written in policy, if you go to the policy and procedures manual.
Of what? Of the program or?
The Parks Policies and Procedures Manual.
And it was presented. I will give credit to when this was kind of laid out and it was presented to the leagues and the various teams. That was a document that was pointed out in terms of it. It's helpful, but there is some vagueness to some situation. It's not perfect for necessarily knowing who would rate over someone else.
Yeah, I was going to say, so there's an actual policy that states one league has a higher priority to this field than the other?
Well, it doesn't necessarily identify the league. It more
the sport.
No, it's more the criteria.
Of the
they've used it prior, or
Oh, okay.
I think a recreational league may take precedent
Recreational
of-
versus competitive.
Oh,
adult
based on a set of
maybe-
parameters?
Maybe kids,
Okay.
kids over adults. I think youth over adults. Yeah. I mean, that's some vagueness to it, but
Right.
I mean it's thorough, but
I know,
it's
yeah.
still not necessarily. There still has to be decision making that's involved. I think on the part of recreation parks. So.
Cool. Okay. Cool. I actually, my other question was a cost prediction, but I know that it may be too, I don't want to put you on the spot about numbers, so I'll send an email.
Cost prediction?
Yeah, just a matter of how much, has there been a cost benefit for this program? Is it easier to track the amount of money that's being brought in, or is it easier to forecast money that's not being brought in? I mean, those types of metrics, I should say.
We're able to have better record keeping of lights. Right now, lights and player fees are the only two fees that we collect from leagues besides special fees. So certainly it's great to have a history of field usage, and I think this time next year we're going to play
maybe.
around with reports, but we're going to be proactive and contact leagues and say this is what your usage was for spring 22. Is this something similar you want, or are you anticipating new numbers? Are you anticipating something different? And so we want to pass that data along to the leagues, and so they can have a record of it and utilize that to enhance our partnership.
Got it. And I'm also looking at it as a way of using those numbers to forecast funding requests or budget requests and things like that. And I'm also throwing in a plug for our annual report, so if we could get that information.
Yeah, but
that would be
obviously, you can
great.
pull any set of data you want. You can see your top user, your top facility that's rented. So the data is overwhelming, but it's fantastic.
Awesome.
The Chancellor's Run Regional Park baseball and softball fields. The 90-foot diamond, it has always been my understanding that is a game-only facility. Is that your understanding?
I have not received that directive.
Okay, all right. Of course, I understand that obviously with the field the renovations that are going on, there's a need for practices to be there. But games, I've had this brought up by two organizations, actually three organizations that use that facility. And the question, of course, right now is, why is it being used as practices, okay, and not for games only? Of course, my answer is that you're not in a game cycle right now, you're in a practice cycle, and we have renovations going on, so obviously something else had to be accommodated. So I think there should be some clarification to the baseball organizations, whether that is a game-only facility or not. I think that's something that has to either be, I would say, re-emphasize it, that it's games only. It's obviously better for the facility because it's a regional park in the middle of things. My history would have it that all sports and baseball were allowed to use it, whether you were north or south of the facility, had some kind of time there in the past. So the other thing from an expense point of view that I want to know about is in the elementary and the middle schools where we have an agreement to use their facilities, do we supply portable units, porta-pot units?
Yes.
Okay, so if someone requested any one of the facilities, it doesn't matter which one, but any one of the schools, along with one of these blanket requests, okay, that a big organization might put in, or any organization, and then wound up that you find out that it's not being used, those porta pots obviously wouldn't be necessary to have there during the fall season. Nobody's practicing on it, nobody's using it.
Correct.
Wouldn't be necessary to have.
Correct.
So if someone's not reporting that back to you that, hey, we don't need it, then the organization should understand that that's an expense that is coming out of the enterprise budget, right? Or does that not come out of the enterprise budget? It doesn't really matter what budget it comes out of. It's an expense that is being incurred and it's not necessary.
Correct.
So that's why I feel that there needs to be some kind of checks and balance in the system, all right? And I'm not sure how to do it, where there's a reporting back that, hey, we don't need this, okay? And there could be a couple schools that are close where I don't really need it all this time, so somebody's only using it one day a week and the schools are close, you can just go here and eliminate that facility during that particular season, all right? So I don't really know how to accomplish that, but it's an expensive work. Regardless how big or small it is, I think that, again, the organization should understand that, this is just a waste of money, just like the payroll situation. If you've only need one person there and you wind up with three, then it's just a waste of payroll. So I don't know how to accomplish that, but that's something that I'm hearing, from users. All right, that had I known it was open, I would have been using it, and subsequently it's not being used, and there's an expense going on. When a school facility is used, is there a person from a staff member from Recreation and Parks that goes around to see if they're being used?
No.
No. Okay. So that staff is only in the Recs and Parks facilities, not in the school facilities?
Correct.
Okay.
So what do you mean by that? Is that,
That means that
Typically, is not a staff member from the schools required unless it's an indoor event.
okay, thank you. I was gonna, because I know we in basketball, they're gym supervisors
no, what I meant
for
is
each,
that
for each program.
specifically what I meant is that we have schools that we're using their facilities, okay? And outdoor I'm referring to, not
Okay.
indoor, okay?
Thank you, sir.
Outdoor facilities, and there's no checks and balances on actually
they
how much
showed
they're
up.
being used.
Right.
And subsequently, if people aren't showing up except for one day a week, then why
Why is
can't
there
they
a
be
porta
assigned
potty?
someplace else and
Where there's more uses, right?
and subsequently eliminate the need for that facility instead of just having, for instance, porta potty expense out there. You follow what I'm saying? So
I hear you.
I don't know how much that adds up to. I have no idea.
That's a good point.
So,
Okay. Well, thank you, sir. Are there any other questions? I think we've,
No, you're good. Thank you.
we appreciate you. Thank you for your patience for waiting after our other discussion.
Thank you, Carl.
All right, moving right along, we have the maintenance and operational manual that Ms. Bishop has kindly put on the screen for us. Where is my sheet? We wanted to understand where we are, and when I say where we are, where is the department with, in its schedule for performing the maintenance and performing these improvements and things like that?
Okay, so this document doesn't give you a where we are. This
Okay.
document gives you the guidelines on how we base what needs to be done.
There you go, there
Okay?
you go, thank you.
So, and if you take the time to actually go through it and read through it, I think it's going to answer the majority of your questions
Okay.
from how we determine what these service levels are, how we came up with that, what each park usage is, high level, medium level, low level. It really goes through quite a bit. Now, you'll also notice that this manual has more than just ball fields and
Yep.
parks, because obviously we're more than that. So it has the maintenance standards for all of the park facilities. It has the maintenance and operation standards for Nicollet Park. It's our specialized facilities in parks. So you have the spray park, you have the golf course, you have the swimming pools. CSM's section of this is currently being developed now,
Okay.
and will be added to it. This document, I believe the review period is every 5 years. It gets a complete overhaul and review
cool,
based on
okay.
standards, but obviously if a new national standard comes out for we'll use the turf fields, say a new national standard comes out for the maintenance of turf fields, then we can update this manual based on those national standards.
Okay.
So you get some general ideas, those continuing questions of how do we determine this? This
Yes.
document is the guidance. It'll tell you exactly how we do it, why we do it, what that's based on.
Yeah, what is the, is it,
These standards turn into the maintenance actions.
Correct. So it goes down, here's your maintenance standard, here's your methodology of how we came up with it. Then you have a little chart of
Yes,
these maintenance
yes,
levels
yes.
are, level 1 through 6, and then you go into each type of area that the parks maintain, and it tells you what level of maintenance that gets. So, it's pretty self-explanatory when you go through
when
it.
you start reading it. So yeah, this is, for me, this is definitely something that thank you. Basketball courts, thank you. So yeah, this is definitely something that I've been, because this topic has been on our agenda for a couple of months. And to be able to definitively look at guidance. Now, is this national, state, federal? Where is this
It's
guidance?
everything.
Okay.
We have to take in consideration,
What
the standards for the type of facility it is, or the lifespan of the facility.
Right.
If there's any codes or regulations that have
Yes.
something to do with that facility. So,
Yes.
it's all of the above.
Yeah, so exactly. This document is something that I think can help me in my understanding as to when are you going to replace the fence? When are you going to change the rim? When are you going to, so thank you.
And it ultimately ends up in your budget, right? When you're asking all those budget questions of how do we develop things? Well, we know when we've gone and inspected the area of the basketball court, we've noticed that there's several courts that have huge cracks and there needs to be an overlay on it. So that's how those things are determined through those inspections.
Right. And additionally, based off of the requirement as to when you have to submit or repair or schedule, and then you submit that budget, that funding, and okay.
How often are the inspections, like I'm seeing a parks maintenance inspection sheet, page 23. How often are those inspections done?
Again, if you go through here, everything has its own inspection level.
Timeline?
Everything's a little bit different based on the timeline, the usage. Obviously parks that have a much higher usage, or the amenities in that park that have a much higher usage, are going to be inspected more frequently. To give you one that I know off the top of my head, because I know playgrounds, is we inspect playgrounds once a month. Those are monthly inspections. But then also, if somebody goes to that park for something in particular, they also go through and do another inspection of the playground. So each amenity has its own.
And if the community usage, the community members that are using the park. In particular, one that was brought up to me was like pickleball in 7th District. It has a lot of dead spots.
It's in the budget for next year.
Okay, good. And-
But they can,
But how
citizens
do
can
you,
anytime.
like anytime, like I go to the park and I see a bench has just been broken. Like how does a community member,
You call Recreation and
Just
Parks
call
and you
them.
tell them. Yeah, they'll forward them to the right person, whether it's something that
Maybe
would be
lighting, I don't know.
CIP kind of thing that would come to me, or whether it's just a regular maintenance item that would go to the maintenance department. But yeah, they can call, they can email.
thank you.
Sorry, I wasn't listening, Veronica. I may be asking the same question. I'm sorry. So if there's a want or a wish, and it's not, it doesn't fall into the parameters of when it should be or addressed, how is that handled?
Want or wish.
Like, okay, like, we'd like the light bulbs changed at Carver Elementary because it's dark. But according to the plan, the light bulbs don't need to be changed until next month.
Well,
How are those
citizens
things?
can send in letters and,
Okay, 'cause I didn't know if that's what she
emails
just
at any
asked.
time of requests of things that they want.
Okay, so for emergencies, like the light fell, but, I mean, that's obviously an emergency change that has to be addressed right away. And say the lights were just inspected and the light isn't damaged, but there's something wrong with it, but we just addressed it. Do we wait until the next inspection, or do we take care of it right away?
It totally depends on the circumstance
Got
of
it.
the item. I mean,
That's,
obviously,
of course, that
safety
makes sense,
items
but I
are
was
going
just
to be,
curious.
safety items are going to be prioritized.
Right, okay.
We don't want anybody hurt. We want the park
Right,
safe.
right,
But it really is just going to be determined.
And the reason why I'm asking is because, believe it or not, I've had that question, so I just wanted to say it out loud.
Yeah, I do believe you.
Perfect.
These procedures are, like, the public can read these, are they?
They're not online only just because of, it wasn't a popular document to put out there, but I mean, it's available. It's not hidden. If anybody wants it, they're more than welcome to ask for it. We can have printed copies.
Cool.
But just like the rest, it's big. It's a big document, so they're not just printed in the office waiting for anybody.
Awesome. So let me ask, you know what, and this is a good segue into the next item on our agenda, the baseball field renovations. Are the baseball field renovations a part of this maintenance policy,
No.
a part of that? So
This is additional projects that were added to the budget with that additional infrastructure
Okay.
money.
All right, perfect.
It's above and beyond those normal.
Okay, great. And we know that in November, because I lost my sheet, we received some monies from DNR. I believe it was back in 2021. It was like $539,000, because of course I lost my sheet. I was
Well,
just
we
curious.
actually received $1.5 million. The baseball field renovation project was only one of 5 projects through
Okay.
that grant.
Right, so my question is, are we finished with all of the items that money was?
No,
All right,
nope. We're getting there.
okay. So is
To
there,
give you an example, one of the things that was done with that grant money was some of the wellness stations down at
mounds.
Lexington Manor
That's
Passive
right.
Park.
That's right.
Still to come is a park pavilion that's been
Right.
ordered for almost a year. And, with the supply issues that are going on in the country right now, that was a hit. I'm still hopeful that that'll be
There it is.
delivered and installed with all the picnic tables associated with it in November.
So yeah, there
here
were also, and I know there were the ADA upgrades.
Right.
Right, and then the.
Been
the
completed. That was all the work done at
mounds,
Chancellor's.
The infield grading, the fencing, the amenities at 19 baseball fields, and then there was a restroom facility at Chaptico Park?
Yep, and we're still going through the permitting process. That is because we're actually putting in a well and septic. It is a very extensive permitting process, so we're still waiting for that. We do have, the contractor has submitted his quotes. Everything's ready to go for construction. The purchase orders have been cut. We're just waiting on the permits.
Got it. So it was
Could I ask,
$148,000.
In relationship to the ball field renovations, when that's completed,
I keep bundling
Is,
my papers. I can't
is
find
the, is there an inspection prior to the contractor leaving the sites?
I don't know that answer.
Uh-huh.
But I did put in what was requested, and that's
Quality
up
check.
on your screen, for completion of the projects. Lancaster, Chancellor,
Okay, yeah.
Cecil, 5th District and 7th District parts are complete. Currently, they are working at Dorsey Park on Field 1. They may actually be past that at this point since I've done that. And then obviously they'll move to 2 and 3, Field 3 there. They were estimating about 2 weeks to get that full amount of work done, and then they will go to Baggett Park. I added a few little other improvements in there that you didn't request, but I know we've talked about several times, so I wanted you to know the status, and that was the tennis court wind screens for Chancellor's, John Baggett, and 7th District. It's actually changed at this point, since I already did this form. That's how quickly things change for us. It
Right.
looks like we should have them in about 2 weeks, and then Parks and Rec staff will install them. And then the netting at the turf fields that was requested at the end zones of the turf fields. Lancaster, the sides by the playground have, on both fields are done.
Oh, yeah.
The other sides and the other parks, we have the purchase orders cut, and we're just waiting for things to be delivered so those can be installed.
So were all of these improvements taken from that 1 point?
No.
Okay.
Some of these were from the Parks and Facilities
Okay.
CIP project.
Okay.
But all of the baseball
Okay.
fields was from the
that?
grant.
Okay.
It's 100% grant funded.
Okay. Another plug for the annual report. Thank you. All right. And this is, we have a copy of this, right? This is for us?
Super.
It's in the,
Oh, it's in there?
I
Okay,
didn't
great.
print any copies, but it is in
Great,
board
great.
docs.
Okay, great.
So I have
All
a
right.
question.
Yes.
The, when the baseball fields were talked about, was Rexham Park given money to begin a process of hiring people to drag those fields?
So there's two different things here.
Okay.
The renovations, that big matrix spreadsheet, that's grant funding.
Okay.
The staff, that's commissioner funding, so it's a different place.
But that was approved by the commissioners, I think.
For this fiscal year, yes,
So that.
the current fiscal year.
So that should, if I'm correct, it was put out by the commissioners starting in
July?
this month. Or was it last month of?
July.
July.
The money was available July 1, but whether or not, when it started being used, I don't.
Right, so
Well, those people have to be hired, and I
Right.
don't know where that.
process hasn't started.
No, I don't know where that process is.
And without the gators and all the rest of the equipment, I
Right.
don't know if that's,
No point in having
money's
employees
been
without
allowed
the
to be
stuff, right?
spent or not, but whatever it is.
So I can't believe I don't
I
have
think
it
the
with me.
estimate for that was, that would be in place in the spring.
Okay.
So so you made a good point. All of the baseball renovations was coming from grant money. I
Yes.
gotta remember to write that down. But all of the other renovations are part of the CIP, that park improvement?
The
Project.
windscreens and the netting are from other CIP
304, okay.
funds, yes,
Grant money.
but not grant funded.
Right, okay.
So,
CIP.
is the chair done?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I didn't mean to interrupt the chair before, but going back to the question of what the checks and balances are based on the improvements that are being made at the ball fields under that grant. Is that accountable through Mr. Copsey to do that and see that?
I don't know what you refer to as checks and balances.
Well, for instance, let's say that in a particular park, and maybe Joe knows which one it is, I don't know, but it was brought up to me that the grading
You said-
that was supposed to be done in order to keep the dugout from being flooded wasn't done, or it still gets flooded because it's higher, you follow what I'm saying?
Quality assurance.
And subsequently, the water just sits in there still. You know, these types of things that were supposed to be corrected.
I mean, I had no intention of bringing this up. I mean, if you talk to most baseball people, the fields are exactly like they were prior to spending $500,000, with the exception of getting the portable mounds, which was nice. Aside from that, you know, I even sent pictures in after the fields were done because, you know, you would see a lot of the runoff. Anytime there was rain, the dugouts would be filled with 5-gallon buckets full of sand that haul washed into the dugouts. And immediately after the renovations, that did not improve
Wasn't
at all.
resolved.
Now, I was told that was going to be fixed as part of the ADA changes, which maybe I just didn't see how that had anything to do with one or the other. But I mean, I think it's a moot point at this point. I think the argument was made that you need to use the right stuff, and from the get-go, you need to have the right people maintaining the fields, or you're really not gaining anything. Now, I would say that's not the case for 7th District. 7th District, the smaller fields were really just practice fields, so the improvements there were great. They got fences, which clearly you could play games. So aside from the mounds, I can at least speak for 7th District, and especially 5th District. You really don't notice much of a difference at all, or that the fields were even renovated, to be truthfully honest.
So to your point, Don, are you requesting, is there any quality assurance after things have been completed?
Well,
on a part of the agent's department?
Everything is the perception of the person that's looking at it, okay, as to whether there's an improvement or not.
That's
all right?
true,
So,
that's true.
It is. I don't want to put anybody, myself or anybody else, in a position of micromanaging what kind of job this guy did,
of course,
or is doing. You follow me? But there's a lot of discontent and criticism out there. I mean, and to hide it is wrong. So I don't know. How much time this contractor has, and as to what's going on and everything, but. These little, you go to have a ball game and then you've got to start cleaning out a dugout, before you have it. It's not a good experience to have happen, these types of things when it should have been done,
Well, and I think that,
as an example.
and part of the planning talk, we talked about the need for fields, and, I think originally when we were talking, an expectation of maybe 3 or 4 days to do a field really turned out to, in most cases, 2 weeks. And so, when you're trying to plan, your schedule, that's a major impact to the adjustments that you have to make. I was shocked to find out that we're still renovating fields. I with all the whole summer that passed, I'm shocked that we're still going to bag it as having not been done yet. So I know that's going to have an impact for this fall. But because
with every contract, there is that period of evaluation and performance. You fix something, it gets done, and then you have the feedback to that contractor, vendor, whomever. So that's the kind of feedback that the communities that are using these facilities need to provide to the agency. Therefore, and I'll just say it, even if it's we can't use that vendor anymore because they did a horrible job. The agency needs to know that. So my comment, I guess, to this community or whomever is let them know that, okay, we paid this guy $500,000 to fix this, and we're still having this problem. Don't use him again. That's the kind of feedback that the agency needs to have. And that's just my opinion.
And also, you need to know who wrote the contract and if they knew what they were writing. Who was involved in writing the contract? It was just someone,
right.
Someone off the street who doesn't understand baseball.
Because it is a moot point now. They paid the money.
Correct.
Might have done everything by the contract.
There's no longer the cards and letters come writing in the mail. So now we're talking about the emails go to who?
The department.
Recs and Parks.
Right, and again, they paid for a service. They paid for a vendor to fix these things. The vendor didn't do a good job.
Well,
let the department know. Therefore, if this ever comes up again, they don't use that person.
Well, and I think
they don't use that.
I think the
business.
bigger frustration is this was kind of informed to the department a year before any of this even started.
That should be said as well.
Yeah, I think that is a frustration. I think most people have moved on. Everybody's so busy, they work.
Yeah,
You know, it's
yeah.
just Enough time. So
We just want to play.
But
We
you
just
know,
want to
so I
work.
mean, I had no intention of even discussing this at all today, but I felt like since it came up,
Of course.
I'm going to throw in my 2
But,
cents.
you know, again, that's why we're here to speak to those issues, and, you know, because they don't hear it, they may not hear it, they do hear it, they may not do it, but we're here to amplify it. The improvements to the baseball fields, they're not good. Don't use that vendor again. That's what we're here for, to advocate that.
And I'll take it further than baseball.
Yeah.
Just like the communication plan, it says in there very clearly, when you as board members get complaints from the citizens, you're encouraged to forward them to me, so I can forward them to the correct personnel in the department to address them. When you don't forward that information, we're not aware. And we
right.
can't do anything to take care of it. So that's baseball, but that's everything.
Yep.
That light that you're talking about that fell down, that there's an emergency. I can always be that point of contact for you guys to forward people to in the community. I know who it needs to go to. They don't need to try to figure that out. I will. Obviously, now, if you know off the top of your head because of the circumstance, you can feel free to forward them to that person.
Right.
But I'm always that in between for those kind of things. So when you get those words, when you're hearing that, forward it to me.
All right.
Be careful.
You guys do have your phone number and everything on the website. It's not a hard, it's not really hard for the citizens
Right.
to figure out how to get a complaint there.
Exactly.
I mean,
My wife used to tell me, be careful.
Got
what
one
you
more
wish-
item, everyone. So we do have one more item. Where are we with the restrooms?
So
Yes.
I know, I'm pretty certain I told you guys before, you know, this is state property, it's not county property, so in order to do any of the, anything on that property, major renovations, you needed to go through DNR, so I did submit the request to DNR with all of the suggestions for the restrooms, and did get that approval back from them this month, so that's great news. The contractors are working on, I believe Roy's already gotten a quote for the restroom facilities, but it will be turnkey through that contractor who will do all the permitting. So from the step one all the way through completion. So obviously the next step would be the purchase order being cut once that quote is processed through the system, and then they'll start the permitting
So
process.
is this is Chancellor's Run, correct?
Correct.
And as of right now, the pads are for Site 1 and Site 2? In the preliminary draft that you gave us?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Are there any plans to put them anywhere else?
Not in this
right.
cycle, no.
Okay.
And giving the fact, if we take like an average of how long it takes to get permits and things like that, when do we think these bathrooms would be operational?
I don't have any answer for you on that. There's too many variables that could throw it. I'd love to tell you this fall. That's not even a
Because
chance.
we have been asking,
Well,
but yeah, that's true. We
It
understand.
should be a little bit faster of a permitting process than, say, Chapsicot Park, where we were digging our own well and septic. This is tying into Metcom services that are already there. But
Okay. Gotcha.
at this point, I don't have a good estimate for you.
Gotcha. All right, so we will go around the horn really quick. I don't know if we still wanted to have final comments limited to 2 minutes.
Pardon?
Final comments limited to 2 minutes.
One thing I would like to give a heads up on, a question for new business and for the next cycle.
Yes, sir.
I guess the question, Ms. Bishop, when the ticket sales that we have, like the King's Dominion and all that kind of stuff.
That's right.
Do we receive any kind of commission off of selling those tickets or anything?
I don't have the answer for that, and I don't think we've sold those since prior to COVID. I don't think they're back in the office.
Oh, okay, okay.
I was going to say, I think we're,
Because the list is
There
extremely
was
long.
some changes.
Vendor
I don't
sales.
really know the details of it, but
we can
it's
add that
been
to
quite
next
some time since we sold those tickets in the office.
I guess that'll be an email. Can we send you an email to follow up on that? Joe, are you okay? Would you like to have some comments?
Yeah, so,
Oh, sorry, I didn't,
Well, no, I would just end with, I don't want to sound critical. I know a lot of things sound critical, so, and I think this has been said for a long time. It's not so much the staff, because I think the staff that I've worked with and that we've worked with Recreation Parks does a phenomenal job, because it's such a small staff that does so much.
Yes.
So, I want to make clear that it's not a question of what the people are doing. Sometimes they are doing the best they can. Like in many, places, you need more people, and that's a common thing in many industries at this point. So, with the amount of resources and manpower they have, they do a phenomenal job. But that doesn't mean that we can't point out things that people want to
That's right.
see improved. So that's not necessarily a criticism of the staff that's there. It's just a criticism of, maybe needing more staff to help
Process.
and assist with some of these things. So I'll finish with that.
no, I don't think it's a matter, I don't look at anything that's being said to any one of the members as being criticizing any part of the department. I don't take that at all. Our task is to help the mission along in relationship to the community, and whatever perception might be left out there is not a perception,
that we can
at least
control.
from this member, and I don't believe from any member is the perception we want to give to staff. People come to work to do a good job. Given the proper tools to work with and direction, they're going to do a good job. And I think everything that Joe said is very appropriate for all the staff. So.
Greg, do you have any comments?
Yes, the camps, the summer programs, I got a lot of good comments on those. The summer programs are awesome. Everybody loves them. You guys do a lot with, like they said, it's minimal staff at a minimal cost. And I think the citizens need to remind themselves that we're getting good product from a good group of people that work hard for us.
Before you pass it on to the other side of the aisle, if I may, I had a couple other remarks to make, if that's all right. Thank you very much.
Sorry, that's not all right.
First of all, I'd like to talk about the trashing of the parks. Today, I went to
Sir,
Chances Run Regional Park.
sir, you actually were allotted some time to provide your comments, so now we're going to move on to other members. If you'd like to add that to next month's agenda, we absolutely can.
Certainly.
Glenn, would you have some
No,
comments?
I just think tonight we had a great discussion, and the public heard it from us on what we discussed. So.
Veronica, do you have any comments?
Just that tonight, I think we learned that if the citizens do have any concerns, that, the department is more than willing to hear them. And I think that folks need to speak up and reach out to one of us, reach out to the department, things like that, so that we can make our recreation and parks facilities the best they can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. As chair, I don't have any comments. I actually know what Mr. DeGraves is going to speak about, so I'll yield my 2 minutes to Mr. DeGraves.
Thank you.
2 minutes.
Today, I was at the regional park to pick up some paperwork, and actually, I couldn't believe what I was seeing in relationship to somebody or a couple of somebodies just looked like they emptied their car on a parking lot. I think that's absolutely terrible, and I think that all of us should realize that our parks are beautiful, and everybody should taking care of trash and rubbish properly in containers, or take it back home with you. Last but not least, we're coming up into the holiday. Enjoy our beaches, boat safely, and have a good, what holiday is it?
All right, is there a motion to
kidding.
adjourn the meeting?
Memorial Day.
Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Labor Day, excuse me.
I motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you very much for watching. If you did watch, have a good evening.
Thank you.